In this episode, we are starting something a little different from the last series. Because the last series looked backward, and this one looks forward. If you listen to what the winners got right, you heard me take apart supplement brands that already won, brands that sold to Unilever or hit 9 figures and gave us a finished story we could learn from. We were reverse engineering victories that had already happened. This series is a different exercise. We are going to look at brands that are scaling right now that have not had their big exit moment yet, and we're going to pattern match on what they are doing differently. Not what the last generation got right, but what the next generation of supplement businesses is doing that the last one didn't. We'll look at the bets they're placing today before we know how they turn out. And I want to be upfront that this is a riskier kind of analysis because these stories are still being written. But it is also more useful because these are the moves you can study and borrow while they are still fresh, instead of waiting 5 years for their exit and wishing you got there first. So this is going to be part 1 of a mini-series called The Next Wave. Over the next several episodes, we are going to look at the brands that are defining where the supplement category goes next and pull out what is genuinely new about how they compete. If you haven't listened to the last series, you don't need it to follow this one, but the two fit together nicely if you want the full picture. Okay, let's get to it. Welcome to Health Business Mastery, the Creative Thirst podcast. I'm your host, Bobby Hewitt. Let me start by drawing a clean line under what the last supplement wave actually established, because you can't understand what's new until you're clear on what went before. The brands of the last wave: OLLY, Smarty Pants, Goli, AG1, Grüns, IM8, collectively proved a few things that the supplement industry now takes as a given. They proved that format matters as much as formula, that a product people actually enjoy taking and can stick with will beat a clinically superior product that sits in the back of a cabinet. They proved that supplements could be built like modern consumer brands with real branding and real identity instead of looking like pharmacy products. And they proved that when you do those things, investors will treat a supplement company like a scalable consumer packaged goods asset, not just a nutraceutical manufacturer with a label. That last point is the one that changed everything. Once Unilever and the other big players started paying real money for these brands, the whole category got revalued. Supplements went from doctor's office credibility to brand-led wellness. And the moment that happened, a flood of new brands rushed in to build the next version of that story. So here's the thing. All of that is now table stakes. Good branding, a pleasant format, a daily habit product, a path from direct to consumer into retail. That's no longer a competitive advantage. That's the price of admission. Every serious new brand has those things now, which raises the obvious question. If everyone learned the lessons of the last wave, then what separates the brands that are breaking out today from the hundreds that have the same format and the same nice branding and go nowhere? What's the new edge now that the old edge is just the baseline? That is what this whole new series of podcast episodes is about. There's probably going to be about 5 or 6 in this series. So here's the single biggest shift I see when I look at the supplement brands breaking out right now. The last wave won primarily on format innovation. The next wave is winning primarily on positioning and specificity. Let me explain what I mean, because this is the heart of it. When OLLY and Goli came along, the gummy itself was the innovation. The format was new enough that being the brand with the better format was most of the battle. When AG1 came along, the all-in-one concept was novel enough that the concept carried the brand. The product idea was the edge. But you can't win on format novelty anymore because the format is no longer novel. Gummies are everywhere. All-in-one is everywhere. So the brands breaking out today are not winning because they invented a new physical form. They are winning because they have a sharper answer to a different question. Not what is your format, but who exactly is this for and what exact problem does it solve? A brand that is probably the clearest example of this is OLLY, spelled A-R-R-A-E. They launched in 2020 and crossed $100 million in revenue with retail expansion into Sprouts, Target, and Ulta. And their positioning line is targeted supplements for unsexy problems. The categories they are going after are bloating, anxiety, sleep, gut health. They are not winning because they have a format nobody has seen before. They are winning because the positioning is razor sharp. It names a specific buyer, a specific set of unglamorous problems, and a specific attitude. That sharpness is the edge. Don't worry, I'm planning to spend an entire episode on exactly how that works. Now, this is a meaningful shift for you to understand because it changes where you should be putting your effort. In the last wave, the advice was get your format and your branding right. That advice is still true, but it is no longer enough because everyone is doing it. The new advice is get your positioning so specific and so sharp that a buyer reads one line and thinks, that is, for me, in a way no general wellness brand could ever trigger. The last wave made supplements feel like consumer brands. The next wave is making them feel like they were built for one specific person. And that move from broad to sharp is the thread running through almost everything we are going to look at. Now it's not as simple as that one move, though, because there are a lot of supplement brands in this next wave, and they are not all doing the same thing. When I look at the field, the brands breaking out fit cleanly into 3 buckets, and each bucket is winning on a different version of that specificity idea. The first bucket I call the lifestyle wellness brands. These are the brands winning on sharp consumer positioning and cultural relevance. Array is the prime example there. You could put OLLY and Goli in the older version of this bucket, and newer names like Lemmy and Belly Welly in the current one. The defining trait is that they take a real problem and wrap it in a brand and a voice that feels current, social, and culturally fluent. They make wellness feel like part of your identity and your lifestyle, not a chore. Their edge is positioning sharpness and cultural timing. The second bucket is the performance and vitality brands. These are sharper, more direct response, more problem and solution focused. The clearest example breaking out right now is Mars Men, a male vitality and testosterone brand that reportedly hit $100 million revenue run rate in under 18 months and raised a serious round from a major consumer investor. This bucket is different in feel from the lifestyle brands. It is less about culture and identity, more about a sharp promise tied to a high-intent problem and a very clean repeat purchase hook. We are going to dig into that whole approach in another episode because it runs against a lot of the lifestyle brand wisdom and it works. And the third bucket is the premium targeted brands. These compete on trust, transparency, education, and specificity of the buyer. Think Ritual and Seed. They both live here on the credibility side. Hum, Needed, and Gainful live here on the targeted and personalized side. The defining trait is that they go narrow and deep. They pick a specific buyer or a specific standard of proof, and they own it completely, and they use that depth to justify a premium price and earn long retention. We are going to cover the education side of this in another episode. So think of this like a map for the next wave of supplement brand growth. Lifestyle wellness, supplement brands winning on positioning and culture. Performance and vitality, supplement brands winning on sharp problem solution direct response. And premium targeted supplement brands winning on trust, education, and going narrow. These are 3 different expressions of the same underlying shift from broad to specific. But Let me go one level deeper on why this shift toward specificity is happening now. Because if you understand the why, you can ride it instead of just reacting to it. Think about it through the lens of marketplace sophistication, which longtime listeners have heard me talk about many times. The supplement market is now extraordinarily sophisticated. Buyers have heard every general promise. More energy, better gut health, support your immune system. Those broad promises have been made so many times that they no longer land. The market has heard them all and discounted them all. When a market gets that sophisticated, the broad promise stops working, and the thing that cuts through is specificity. A brand that says it supports your wellness is invisible. A brand that says it is for the bloating you get after specific meals, for women with a clinically studied ingredient, in a way that works in a defined window of time, that brand is visible because it is speaking to a specific person about a specific moment in a way the broad brands can't. Specificity is what sophistication demands. The more crowded and more jaded the market, the narrower and sharper you have to be to register at all. That's not a style choice. It is a structural response to where the market is on the sophistication curve. But there's a second force driving this too, and it's the cost of acquiring a customer. Broad positioning means you are competing against everyone for attention, which means you are bidding against the entire category for the same expensive clicks. Sharp positioning means you are speaking to a narrower buyer who recognizes themselves immediately, which tends to convert better and cost less, because the message does the qualifying for you. In a world where the cost to acquire a customer keeps climbing, specificity is not just a branding advantage, it is an economic one. The sharper your positioning, the more efficient your acquisition, the more room you have in your margins to actually grow. So the shift to specificity is being pushed by two things at once: a market sophisticated enough that broad promises are invisible, and an acquisition cost environment that punishes brands for trying to talk to everyone. Those two pressures together are why the next wave looks the way it looks. So let me make this practical for the supplement brand you're actually running today. The first thing to do is be honest about whether your positioning is broad or sharp. And the test is simple. Read your homepage headline and your top ad and ask whether a specific person would read it and immediately think, that is for me, or whether it would just wash over a general wellness audience as one more brand saying the kinds of things all the brands say. If your positioning could be lifted and dropped onto a competitor's site without anyone noticing, it is too broad. The next wave is being won by brands whose positioning could only ever belong to them. The second thing is to figure out which of the three buckets you are actually in, because they compete differently, and the advice is different for each. If you are a lifestyle wellness brand, your edge is going to come from positioning sharpness and cultural fluency. If you are a performance and vitality brand built on a high-intent problem, your edge is in the sharpness of your promise and the strength of your repeat purchase hook. If you're a premium targeted brand, your edge is in trust, education, and going narrow enough to own something completely. Knowing which bucket you're in or going after tells you which lever to pull. And the third thing, which matters most, is to resist the urge to be everything to everyone. Yeah, I'm talking to you here, Oki. I know you're listening. The instinct when you are trying to grow is to broaden, to add more products, to speak to more people, to soften the positioning so it offends no one and includes everyone. That instinct made sense in an earlier, less sophisticated market. In this market, it is a quiet killer because broad is invisible. The brands breaking out right now are doing the opposite. They are getting narrower and sharper, and they are growing because of it, not in spite of it. Narrow is not a limit on your growth. In this wave, Narrow is the engine of it. So the last wave proved that format and branding and a path to retail could turn a supplement into a scalable consumer brand. And it proved it so thoroughly that all of those things are now just the baseline. Everyone has them. The next wave is winning on something past that. It is winning on positioning and specificity, on being so sharp about who you are for and what exact problem you solve that the right buyer recognizes themselves instantly in a market too sophisticated and too expensive to reward anyone trying to talk to everyone. And that shift sorts into 3 buckets: lifestyle wellness brands winning on positioning and culture, performance and vitality brands winning on sharp problem solution, direct response, and premium targeted brands winning on trust, education, and going narrow. Over the next few episodes, we're going to take each of those apart with the brands that are leading them. Next episode, we're going to look at array and the art of positioning sharpness, because sexy supplements for unsexy problems is one of the best pieces of positioning in the entire category right now, and there is a lot underneath it worth learning. And if listening to this, you are realizing that broad positioning is exactly what is holding your brand back, and you want a team that does supplement positioning for a living to come in and sharpen it with you, that is what we do at Creative Thirst. We work with a small number of supplement brands at a time, and we are selective about who we take on. If that is where you are, you can apply to work with us at creativethirst.com.